Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Therese and welcome to your IELTS exam. Can I have your full name, please?
My name is Eli Hardy-Howes.
Great, thank you. Do you have identification with you?
Not currently.
That's okay. Let's just get right down to it.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to record the exam just to know that the exam is starting now. Okay, so part one. I'm going to ask you a series of questions and just do the best of your ability to answer them. Okay, so let's talk about the town or city where you live now. So where are you living today?
I currently live in Dublin. I'm in the south side of Dublin in an area called Dundrum.
So this is Eli Hardy-Howes. He's an IELTS specialist and obviously a native speaker in English. You'll notice right from the very beginning that Eli is completely relaxed. It's very natural to have a conversation or a test with him because he obviously really enjoys communication with other people. So I think what we can learn from this is that before you go into your IELTS speaking test, just try to relax, try to be as natural as possible, and remember that this is a dialogue with another human being, with another person. So just try to be yourself.
And have you always lived in the same town or city?
Right, no, I haven't. I've moved around extensively throughout my life. I was born in London, spent most of my childhood in Scotland, and then I've worked in Spain and China. But as I mentioned, currently I'm in Dublin.
Right, okay, great.
What I've noticed at this point already in the test is that Eli has already used 3 tenses. He's used the present tense, the present perfect, and also the past form. So it's good to remember to try to vary your use of tense so that you're not just staying with the present form all the time.
What do you like about the city that you currently live in?
Oh, interesting. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that I like, and I think there's a lot of things that I'm about to like even more because I moved to Dublin in November 2019, and only 2 months into living in Dublin, we went into lockdown. So actually the majority of the time that I've been living in Dublin has been a kind of slightly distorted Dublin. It's a Dublin in lockdown as a result of COVID.
Yes.
So what I like from my experience of lockdown Dublin is I like that there's a lot of green areas. So having come from Shanghai, which is obviously a very vast metropolitan city, it's a very nice experience to be able to walk out of the door and be surrounded by lush green areas.
Yes.
And then as I think that one thing I'm going to especially like in a kind of post-lockdown Dublin is the ability to go out and explore some of the bars that are so famous in Dublin.
Yes, a lot of good bars in Dublin.
Have you noticed all the great vocabulary that Eli uses during the test? He uses words like explore, lush, surrounded. This really shows a great variety of vocabulary. So if you want to hit band score 8 and 9, aim to use new language, new words that really show a good knowledge of the English language.
And would you like to always live in this city?
Interesting. I'm not sure I'd like to live here for my entire life. So previously I lived in Spain, in Barcelona, and the city really resonated with me, particularly because I'm a very keen rock climber.
Oh.
And it's actually an intention of mine to eventually return to living in Barcelona, especially so that I can go rock climbing at the weekends and explore the different cliff faces of Catalonia.
That sounds lovely. Let's talk about going to restaurants. Do you often go to restaurants?
I would say I go to restaurants fairly often. Certainly when I was living in Shanghai, I ate out regularly. There's a real culture of eating out in Shanghai. There's a lot of really good, inexpensive food, and Chinese food is absolutely delicious. Having lived in Dublin, like I mentioned, the majority of the time that I've been here has been a slightly distorted Dublin under lockdown.
Yes.
So I haven't been able to go to restaurants. But now that things are beginning to open up, my girlfriend and I went to a restaurant last weekend, and it was very exciting.
Oh, that's great.
And I intend to go to more as well.
But outside, of course, not
Exactly,
inside
outside.
the restaurant. And which do you prefer, eating at home or eating in a restaurant?
I prefer eating at home. Yeah, I like being able to cook something quickly and watching a series while eating, or just chatting to my girlfriend and eating the food that I've prepared and that I like to eat.
That's interesting. Have the kinds of restaurants you like changed over the years?
Well, certainly my experience living in Asia changed the kind of restaurants I like to eat in. I would say that previously I ate a lot more Italian food. I really enjoyed eating pizza and pasta. And then after living in China, I got much more into Asian food. A lot of Japanese food, Thai food, Vietnamese food, and a lot of Chinese food as well.
Chinese food too.
So instead of saying, I really like Asian food, Eli says, I really got into Asian food. That just means that he really got involved, he really got interested in that type of food. You could also say, well, I'm really keen on Asian food. That's another great expression to use instead of just saying, I like every time.
And how do you choose which restaurants to go to?
So it's usually a combination of what's on the menu and the price that it's at.
Yes.
Often my girlfriend and I will check out different restaurants on Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
And if there's like particularly nice looking dishes, then we'll choose to go to that restaurant.
Yeah. I'm going to give you a topic and I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you talk, you'll have 1 minute to take a look at the question, and you can use the paper here and the pencil to do some preparation.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay. So whenever you're ready, you can begin.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you about a holiday that I had in 2018. So at the time I was living in Shanghai in China, and I was in a long distance relationship with my girlfriend, my current girlfriend. And so the way that we would see each other would be to typically go on holiday somewhere. So she was in Ireland, I was in China, and we would look at the map and we'd choose a different place to go to, and that's where we would meet up. So on this particular occasion, we went to Italy to go rock climbing. And what we did is we rented a van from a company called Indie Campers, and they give you basically a camper van, or rather it's a converted transportation van. And they've put a bed in the background and a little kitchen, in the back of the van, and a little kitchen. And what it was very exciting. So we arrived in Milan airport. They come pick you up, and then they show you how to kind of drive this large vehicle. And we set off straight from Milan airport into Switzerland, where we spent 5 days climbing together and living in this van, which was a very exciting experience, something new for us. And then we also managed to coincide the holiday, and this is one of the reasons why it's so special, with a friend's wedding. So from Switzerland we drove back into Italy and then drove to Florence, where an old school friend was getting married. So we had to drive, I think, around 6 or 7 hours the day before the wedding, and obviously because we have this van with the bed in the back, we were able to arrive at the wedding venue late at night. We fell asleep in the van and then woke up and then went straight into this wedding. So we changed out of our climbing clothes and straight into the suit that I had and the dress that my girlfriend had, which was a totally unusual experience.
Yes.
And it's one of the reasons why the holiday was so special for us. The wedding itself was really, really exciting. It was a Chinese girl getting married to a Scottish guy. And what they had done is they'd had a kind of fusion between Italian food, Scottish food and Chinese food. And also the wedding had that kind of theme. So there was a Scottish ceilidh, which is a very exciting dance that typically happens at Scottish weddings. And then And then the day after the wedding, we had to drive from Florence back to drop off the van and then get on our flights, in my case, to go back to China, and in my girlfriend's case, to go back to Ireland. So it was a totally special and unusual holiday.
That's fine.
You'll notice in this part of the test that Eli goes into a lot of description about this holiday. He explains where he went, who he went with, why and when. And then he gives information about the content of the trip. He describes the events. So that's what you really need to do in this part 2, is try to elaborate on the events and the details. This is the moment for you to tell a story.
So we've been talking about a special holiday you had, and I'd like to discuss with you one or two related questions to holiday and to travel. Other cultures, what advice would you give to someone coming to your country on how to fit in with the local culture?
Right, interesting. So I'll talk about England, which is where I was born.
Yes.
So certainly a good idea for anyone arriving in England is to have a good level of English before you arrive ultimately.
Yes.
I know from my own experience, having moved to Spain, having moved to China, that it's quite difficult if you arrive with quite a low level of a language to fit into the culture. But if you can get to that kind of pre-intermediate or intermediate level, then suddenly the world opens up, and you can have meaningful conversations with people from those countries, and that actually allows you to improve your language level considerably and get to know the culture better. So my top tip would be try and get to that pre-intermediate or intermediate level of English before arriving in the UK or in England.
It's very, very good advice, I would say. Do you think that living in a foreign country is the best way to know the culture of that country?
I mean, I think so. I think there's a lot of subtleties about a culture that you don't necessarily understand from, say, watching films or reading books about a country. Whereas when you're living there, whether consciously or unconsciously, you're picking up or noticing a lot of aspects of a culture.
Yes. Yeah, that's
whether
right.
it, for example, whether it's the food or the way that people treat each other, or even the kind of conversations that people have together.
Would you recommend a specific amount of time in order to get to that level? 6 months or 1 year? How much time do you need to really learn about a new culture?
Yeah, interesting question. I think it really depends on the person, and also how open the culture is as well. And like I said, the language and the ability to immediately integrate into that culture. So, I mean, certainly the longer the better.
In part 3 of the IELTS test, Eli's ability to use structure, opinion and argument is pushed a little bit further. This is the more abstract part of the exam. And what I've really noticed is that Eli uses the conditional forms very well. And he also uses complex sentences very well with the use of the term whereas.
But if somebody were to have a high level of language ability for the country that they're going to, and immediately be able to find friends, then they would require less time to get to know the culture. Whereas someone arriving without the language ability, without the friendship, would certainly take a lot longer. But
True.
as a minimum, I'd say,
Yes.
as probably around 1 month.
So one month.
One month, yeah.
And for someone who arrives in the country with a low level of English, for example, how long will it take them to become an intermediate speaker in English?
Yeah, interesting question. I mean, typically moving from elementary to pre-intermediate and then to intermediate in a classroom setting would take 3 years. Yeah, if you imagine, well, a part-time student, 1 year of elementary, 1 year of pre-intermediate, 1 year of intermediate studies.
Yes.
Someone integrated in the culture, if they're being active and they're making an effort to really get themselves out there and speak to people, I think they can reduce that time to, say, maybe 6 months. if they're an extroverted person who enjoys getting to know people and they're actively communicating in the language and doing their best to study the language in their free time.
Yes, of course. And would you also recommend that the student or that person lives with a host family or in an international environment, or to stay with their own group or their own culture?
I mean, living with a host family is a great idea,
Yeah.
Especially if they're interested in more than just the language. If they're interested
Mm-hmm.
in understanding the culture, then it's a phenomenal way to really get to grips with different aspects of the culture.
This expression, get to grips, is a very, very good expression that you can use in English. It means to get used to or to get adapted to doing something.
I mean, typically what happens, and I know this from my own experience having lived abroad, is it's very easy to find people that you feel instantly comfortable with, and that's often because you can speak the same language and staying within that bubble. And that will certainly impede your ability to integrate into the culture and improve your language skills.
Thank you so much, Eli, for your support and participation today.
Thank you, Therese.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to summarize here on the feedback of my experience in speaking with Eli, I found that overall he has a great range of language and vocabulary. That's what really stands out when he speaks. But also he's extremely coherent. He speaks at a very natural pace, but very clearly. So no matter where you're from in the world, whatever your accent, you can speak slowly and clearly. Take your time so that any speaker from any country can understand you well. Vary your use of tense when you're speaking in the IELTS exam. Try to use the past, narrative forms, present, and of course the future and conditional as much as you can. I hope. By the way, make sure you check out Eli's website, EnglishProTips.com, where you'll find lots of great IELTS preparation courses. And on Eli's YouTube channel, you'll find lots of fantastic videos on every aspect of the IELTS exam. So go check it out. I hope this was useful for your IELTS speaking test. Good luck in your preparation and see you in our next video. Bye!